Could have been my house if I lived in the Library of Congress. Okay, so let's first look at why do photos come out soft? Like, what are the culprits? What are the reasons why we wind up with soft photos? Well, one of them are focusing mistakes. Some are ours and some are the camera's. The camera's not always perfect every 100% of the time on just literally making, focus decisions. Number two is our hand holding settings. Sometimes we're not holding our camera steady enough, our settings aren't right, and we wind up with blurry photos. That's a big one. Number three is there are ways that you could be eliminating vibration that you're not, and that's causing problems. Like earlier we talked about turning off the image reduction or vibration stuff when you are on a tripod. That's not eliminating vibration, right? So there we go. And and big news, it looks like the lights are back on Christina. There we go. All right, you're not green. You're well lit in a good way, and not the drunken way. But anyway.
Yeah, I'm glad I'm not green.
I'm just glad to see that you're not in the dark any longer. All right, and number four of the reasons is you're not sharpening enough or correctly in post-production in Photoshop or Lightroom. So you're not doing that part. So those are the four main things we're going to look at in here. So let's start off with the hand holding thing. So you can get really super sharp shots, hand holding, that's not really an issue. It just depends on the light. Like this is shot out in broad daylight. It's very easy to get a sharp shot. How easy is it to get a sharp shot of this? Well, I have an embarrassing admission to make. The embarrassing admission is this was shot from the back of a car. I know that's horrible. I feel bad. I feel guilty. But there's more to the story than this. So I was actually out there. I'm not the laziest photographer in the world. I was out there shooting on those sand dunes. We get back in the car and we have to get back to town. Actually, I have to get back to the U.S. consulate in Dubai because my passport's torn and I have to get it repaired. And I just learned that they close at a certain time, and if I miss that time, I'm not going to be able to get my passport fixed. So we jump in the car, we're heading back to town, and just as we're driving away from that location, I look and there are these sand dunes. So I asked the driver, hey, can you stop for just a second? Can you really quick? And so I rolled down the window and I got the shot with the 70 to 200. There you go, Bob's your uncle. But if you have good hand holding settings, you can do it. So what are good hand holding settings? Well, it's being really aware of the light and making sure that your shutter speed doesn't drop to where your shutter's open long enough to where any little tiny movement with your hand and the shot's out of focus. So how do we keep our shutter speed from dropping? I'm going to turn you on to something that I can tell you right now. I resisted for a long time. I didn't want to do it. I didn't think it was a good thing. I was wrong. I learned, and it'll make a big difference. Now, it's two parts. When I show you the first part, you're going to go, but you got to hear the second part. Here's the secret to getting, and I guarantee you, you're going to get sharper, more shots in focus than you probably ever have by going and turning on your auto ISO function. That's not the whole story. Stop groaning. There's more. But then what you're going to do to make this really work is you're going to go and set your minimum shutter speed. Like, see that at the bottom of this particular menu? You're going to set your minimum shutter speed to 1/125th of a second. What does this mean? It means that I will never take a photo where my shutter speed is below 1/125th of a second, which means I'm probably not going to take any photos that are blurry. Because at 1/125th of a second, you can even move a little and still it'll be pretty sharp. So it's my sharp insurance policy. So here's what happens, and so it helps to understand what this means, because when you first hear it, you're like, but I'm telling you. Now, you're going to turn this on for street photography, for travel photography. You're not going to do this in the studio. You have separate set of stuff for that. You're not going to do it in landscape because you're going to be on a tripod. This is for where you're in hand-holding situations. Street photography, travel photography, candid photography, stuff like that. You're walking around or whatever. When you turn this on and you set it to 1/125th minimum, that means it's never going to take a shot that low. But here's why people fear this, and here's why you should not. So think about your camera, your ISO settings. What are your settings, your choices? 100, 200, 400, 800, 16, 32, 64. It doubles every time, right? So when you turn on auto ISO, this is what's so brilliant about this. It doesn't use the same numbers that we're allowed to use as consumers, as photographers. It uses exactly the amount of ISO it needs to get to that number. So when you go back later and look at your XF data, your camera data of what it was shot at, you're going to see ISOs that don't exist. Like you'll see one set to, 212 ISO, 141. And you're like, where did these come from? The camera has access to them. We don't have access to them. So don't think that if you turn this on, you're going to jump from 200 to 400 to 800 to 1600. It's only going to go exactly up to what it exactly needs to get you to 1/125th of a second. It's going to stop right there. So if you're at 100 ISO, it only needs to go to 121 ISO. That's where it's going to go. It works like a charm. You will get more in-focus photos from hand-holding than you've ever gotten before, because it's almost an insurance policy that you're going to get sharp shots. Have you noticed, think about this, have you noticed how few shots you take with your cell phone that are out of focus? How few shots. Do you know why so few shots with your cell phone? Because auto ISO is turned on by default on everybody's cell phone. That's why you hardly ever get, now you might get noisy shots, it might raise the noise a lot, but you don't get many blurry shots with your phone. Have you noticed that? That's why. All right, next, let's look at picking your own focus point. So sometimes it's better if you pick the focus point than your camera, because sometimes your camera's wrong. Now, sometimes it's right on the money, but you know where I gotten burned? For example, when I let the camera pick the point, take a look at this shot right here, right? So she's standing, right up against a backdrop, a painted backdrop. Well, every once in a while the camera goes, oh, you want this in focus? And it focuses on the backdrop. So she's not out of focus, but she's not tack sharp. That few inches, because I'm like F8 or F11 or something, those few inches that are the difference between the backdrop and her are the few inches that keep it from being super sharp. It's sharp, it's just not deadly sharp. I want it to be deadly sharp. So what you would do is, in this case, either turn on auto eye focus so it goes right to it, or just move it over manually. Just take the little dial or joystick on the back of your camera and move it right over her face so you know that those eyes are going to be on the money. All right, I have another technique that kind of helps with this, and I named it this. It doesn't have an official name. The Live View Focus Override Technique, which sounds very, very good. All right, so the best way I can describe this is, I'll show you. We'll take you through steps and you'll get it. It's for when you're on a tripod. So we're on a tripod. Now, the problem with photography, the way we usually normally do it, is this. You take a photo, then you see it on the back of the camera, then you zoom in and you find out it's out of focus. What if you could check the focus before you shoot the shot? Aha! That would be cool. Well, you can. Here's how you do it. You turn on live view. You turn on live view on the back of the camera before you shoot the shot. You turn on live view. Why? Because in live view mode, you focus, go ahead and focus. You focus 1/3 of the way into the, so like on that pond or whatever. So you focus, you haven't taken the shot. All you've done is held the shutter button down halfway. Now, you can use the little magnifying glass button on the back to zoom in and see if your focus is sharp before you take the shot. What if the camera didn't choose the right place? What if it's not super sharp? So if you do zoom in and you're like, that doesn't look real sharp. I focused on that pond right there, and I look on the edge of the pond, and it's icky. Then you go on to step 4. Turn off your autofocus. So go to your little autofocus, manual focus, switch it to manual focus. Then go to your little barrel. At the end of your barrel, you're going to move the focus ring until it's super sharp. Then once you've done that, take the picture. You can take it in live view mode, or you can switch back. But either way, you know it's going to be sharp, because where it's focused, you super sharpened it. Let me show you that again, because the first time you see it, it blows your mind. You're on a tripod, turn on live view, focus your image 1/3 into the frame. So you're 1/3 into the frame. Zoom in on that spot where you focused and see if it's in focus. If it's nice and sharp, just take your shot. If it's not nice and sharp, go to step 4. Turn off your focus, go to manual focus, then use the focus ring right on your camera barrel to rotate it until it is super sharp. Defocus it and then turn it and focus it. That's it. All right, long distance focusing, a place where people get burned all the time. Ooh, they get burned. How do they get burned? Well, you probably heard that you can focus to infinity. Like, oh, you're shooting the moon or you're shooting something way off in the distance, way, way off there. Focus to infinity, that'll get it. Here's where people get burned. See the symbol on the left? That's the infinity thing. You switch to it, and guess what? Your shots are a little out of focus. Because in actuality, you're supposed to focus on the line before infinity. So you see how there's a line, then it turns up? That's where you actually focus. Now, you may be lucky enough to have a lens where infinity, there is no line, and then you focus on infinity. But for some reason, there's a lot of lenses where you have to go to the infinity symbol and then turn back to the little line. Now, doesn't that sound kind of crazy? Doesn't that sound, come on, doesn't that sound like Adobe designed that? So it's not the obvious thing, it's the inobvious, like, you'd make it this way, right? No, you actually go back to this line before. I don't know, but that's it. All right, next, does your lens have a sweet spot? Well, most lenses do. Most lenses have a sweet spot, some particular f-stop that is really, really great for it, like your sharpest, nicest place for your lens. What is it? Well, over time, everyone's always said, well, it's probably f8, right? It's f8. Maybe. It depends on your lens. Like in the question and answer, for those of you who weren't here for it, there was a gentleman who his sweet spot he had found out was f5 on his lens. The sharpest f-stop for him was f5. What is yours for your lens? Let's do a test and find out. Because the f8 thing, that is not true, especially anymore. So do a simple test. First, you need a target. Now, B&H makes a target you can download for free. You just go to bit.ly/BH Target 2, and you download the target and print it out. What if you don't have a printer? Well, then you're never going to know what you're short. No. You can go tear a sheet out of a magazine, and I would share one out that has a very large texty headline. I think it works better looking at text than it does at patterns, but your call. Then you're going to print it out. So if you get the target from B&H, you're going to print it out of your printer. If you don't have a target, you're going to tape to your wall a magazine ad. What are you going to tape it to your wall with? Scotch tape? Duct tape? No. Gaffer's tape. Bing! Gaffer's tape is what you want. Okay. Set up your camera. Important. On a tripod. Set it up on a tripod. Aim it directly at perfect height at whatever you want in that frame. Build a frame. Take a shot at but you could try f5, f5.6, f7.1, f8, f9, f10, f11, f16. No sense in trying any further than that, but do them in order from lowest to highest number. And open them in Lightroom, select them both and press the letter C so they're side by side. You will not know when it's zoomed out like this. You got to zoom in tight. And it is very likely that you will see one f-stop is sharper than the others. And now you know what your sharpest f-stop is. Now, if your sharpest f-stop is f10, then for using landscapes, I'd probably use f10 instead of f11. For the gentleman that had f5 earlier, I wouldn't shoot a landscape with f5. Even though it's the sharpest one, you won't have the depth that you want. Like your mountains in the background will still be a little out of focus at f5. They won't be as sharp as they would have been at f10 or 11. But it's more likely that the sharpest f-stop will be closer to 8, 9, 10, something like that. So it's a really handy thing to know which is your sharpest to get sharper shots. All right, there's another technique. It is called mirror lockup. Now, I do want to give you a heads up about using mirror lockup, and this is important. If you have a mirrorless camera, there's no mirror to lock up. So, just keep that in mind. Not for, I said this is not necessary. It should just say this is not for mirrorless cameras. You don't have a mirror. What is mirror lockup? Okay, so here's what the deal is. When you take a shot on a DSLR, your mirror flaps up and it flaps down. It's just a quick, that movement moves the camera. It literally shakes the camera a tiny bit. So what we do is we turn on mirror lockup. What does that do? You press the shutter button, it doesn't go like this. It goes like this and leaves it sitting there. You have to press the shutter button a second time and it gently closes. It is so much less movement, so much less that you get sharper shots. So press it once, it's open, wait a second, and then take the shot. Much, much cleaner. All right, how do you invoke this? Well, it depends on your camera make and model, of course. On a Nikon, for example, this one right here, you can just choose it in the dial. Move the dial around to M up, and there you go. On a Canon, it is a menu item actually called mirror lockup. So you choose mirror lockup and away it goes. Now, on Sony, it's different. Sony, if you turn on their 2-second self-timer, it automatically invokes it for you. It automatically does mirror lockup. So when you press the button waiting for 2 seconds, it pops the mirror up, takes the shot, and then at 2 seconds, gently drops the mirror. So very clever, very clever Sony. All right, so that is mirror lockup. It's easy to use. Just remember, you have to press the shutter button twice when invoking this magical beast. Next, your ISO matters. So you've heard me mention today numerous times, use your cleanest, lowest ISO. So basically, lower equals sharper. So the lower, if you can get away with 100, you're going to have sharper images. When you get up to 1600 and 3200, you'll see noise. The noise doesn't bother me, but there is a loss of sharpness because the grain creates this slight bit of blurring-ish. It doesn't look quite as sharp. All right, next, this is really important. You've got to check your sharpness while you're in the middle of the shoot. While you're still shooting, you have to stop, zoom in on your camera, hit the little magnifying button and zoom in. You got to check it while you're still in front of the subject or the place or the staircase or whatever. You got to hit that little button, zoom in and check it right then and there. Because if you don't, you will have the heartbreak of getting back and finding when you think you nailed the shot, you look back and you're like, oh no, it's a little soft. It is a heartbreaking thing. It's happened to me more times than I can count. That's why I'm very, very fastidious about zooming in and checking. All right, next. If what you're shooting moves, if you're shooting sports, action sports, toddlers moving quickly, you have to switch your focus mode. So single focus mode is the mode that your camera was born in, and what it means is I'm expecting that everything I'm shooting is going to be a non-moving object. I'm shooting apples in a bowl, on a table, non-moving things. All of a sudden something moves. I've had people send me notes. I remember getting one from a mom that said, I'm shooting my son's softball or Little League game, and when I shoot a picture of him on first base, it's sharp. When he gets to second base, it's sharp. All the photos I take, it's hit and miss. Half of them, more than half of them are out of focus. It's because she's in single focus mode. What she needs is continuous focus mode. Continuous focus mode, she would, as he leaves the base, when she fires the first shot, it's going to track with him. Like the continuous focus is going to track with him as he runs. And so when she goes click, 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 it's going to anticipate the way he's going. The focus will stay with him. You'll get almost all those shots in focus. Maybe not every one, but really, really close. So if she took 15 shots, 14 of them will be on the money. One of them's going to be. All right, where do you turn this feature on? Well, on Sony's, go to the first camera menu. It's focus mode, continuous AF is what it's called. On Canon's, it's called AI Servo because no one would ever know what that means. I don't know if you heard that, but that sneeze from the control room was so loud that we heard it out here in the studio. He said sorry. It about took us out in here. All right. On Nikon's, it's called AFC. AFC, Continuous Focus Mode. You turn it on and it uses this predictive tracking and it does a great job. You're going to get more photos than you've ever had in focus before. Now, do you want to take it to the next level? You got continuous focus on, all right? And that's great. But if you want to take it up a notch, it's time for this bad boy. Back button focus. Oh yeah, what is this? This is where you turn off the focus from your shutter button. And instead you use the autofocus button that is on the back of your camera. And this is literally go into a menu and do it. You just, like for on my Canon, I go in here to say, let's go to the shutter button. When I press the shutter button halfway, you can see it shows a little icon for a meter and AF for autofocus. Say, nope, I don't want meter and autofocus, just meter. I want the autofocus to be the button in the back. How does this help me? How does this change things? Here's what it does. When you have that continuous focus turned on, and now you've got back button focus. First, let's look at how regular focus works. When that kid's running from base, every time I press the shutter button, it refocuses. Focus, 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 focus. Sometimes it's going to hit, sometimes it's going to miss. When you use back button focus, you press and hold the back button, and it focuses the whole time. It hits that kid, and every time you press the shutter, it doesn't interrupt the focus. It doesn't refocus, it focuses once and runs with him. It does a great job. You'll get so many in focus photos from action, you're going to be like, I had no idea. Now the problem is, people fall so in love with it that they use it for everything. It's really designed for action sports, but people are like, I love this back button focus, I use it for everything. When I ask the question in the crowd, how many people use back button focus, it's literally half of the crowd. So try it once, see what you think. It takes a day or so to get used to it, but once you do, ooh, you love it. So you're going to press the button, fire, 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 fire. When you're done, release. Now, anytime you release, it's going to lock the focus at that point, right? So if you're doing a portrait, you can lock it on their eye, hit the button, and now it's locked, and you're good to go. So it's that kind of thing. All right, so give it a shot, see what you think. I think you'll like it. Next, what about calibrating your lens? Should you calibrate your lens? Here's what you have to think. If you've ever said this sentence, you know, this lens used to be so sharp, but lately, maybe time to calibrate your lens. Now, you're only going to do this if you notice something's out of focus. Like you notice it's not as sharp as it used to be. So don't take a nice new lens and go calibrate. It's not necessary. They come calibrated from the factory. But over time, if you've got a 4 or 5 year old lens, maybe time to calibrate it. First, you need a calibration target. How much are they? You can spend 150, you can spend 200, or you can do what I do. Spend 25 bucks to get the focus pyramid. Now you go, 25 bucks, that's a deal. And you're going to feel like it's a deal until it actually arrives and you realize it's not plastic. It's a flat piece of cardboard, and you fold it into that pyramid, then you go, I got ripped off, this is just a piece of cardboard. But honestly, it works really well. See that little blue rectangle in the middle? You're going to aim that thing up and you're going to focus on it. So we're going to kind of do a test similar to what we did with the printing thing, but it's slightly different. You're going to put the focus pyramid on a table. Now, on the back of your camera, on all of our cameras, we have a micro adjustment for focus. Why do they have micro adjustment? Because lenses get out of adjustment over time. On the Canon, it's called AF micro adjustment. On the Nikons, it's called autofocus fine tune. And on the Sonys, it's also called AF micro adjustment. So, how do you do this? Well, they have a plus or a minus, +5 or -5 adjustment, and or a +5 or a +10 minus adjustment. So you can either go positive or negative in making the adjustment. Here's what I do. I take 5 shots. The first shot is no adjustment. That's just my regular lens as it goes. The next one is I set the micro adjustment to +5, take the shot, set it to +10, take the shot, set it to -5, take the shot, -5. That way when I open them in Lightroom, I know which is which. Now all of these, if you notice, how did you get those +0, +5? That's my iPhone. I got an app that lets me write in big letters, and I just wrote them in there, stuck them in there so I'd know which ones are which later on. Then you're going to take them into Lightroom, zoom in, put them side by side. If one looks sharper, let's say that -5 looks sharper, then you know for this particular lens, when I'm shooting with it, I need to set the AF micro adjustment to -5, and it will be sharp as a tack. Easy peasy. All right, this next one. Oh, this next one's a good one. I've used it a lot. It's helped me a lot. It's saved me on many occasions. It is called the burst mode trick. So you would use this trick in bad conditions. So let's say, for example, you're shooting in really low light, you don't have a tripod, nothing you can lean it against, and you're gonna have to try to make a shot. You set your camera to burst mode or high-speed continuous mode, and you're gonna take a series of shots. Click, 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 click. Well, they're not gonna go that fast in low light. Click, 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 and you're gonna get a whole bunch of out-of-focus photos, but one will be tack sharp. I tried this, I've done it many times, but I tried it in Hong Kong Harbor. In Hong Kong Harbor, the one that you see in the Apple screensaver for the Apple TV, there are these all day long ferries, very inexpensive, like $1, literally like $1, that go back and forth between Kowloon and Hong Kong. And it's not a very long ride, maybe 10 minutes. Well, they're cool little boats. They've been doing it forever. I think they're called like the Star Harbor boats or something. They've been doing it for like, 70 years or whatever. The boats look like they're 70 years old, but they're charming. It's getting close to sunset, or it's after sunset, actually, I think. I'm in a boat, so I'm in the boat, and the boat's going like this, right? Because we're going across the harbor. I'm going this way. Here comes another boat the other way. I'm trying to shoot from my moving boat to get a picture of the other moving boat in low light. Are you kidding me? So I go against a wall on the outside of the boat. I lean against, like in the passageway, I lean against a wall and I'm trying to take the shot. And I know there's no way, except for the burst mode trick. So I do it. I sit there and go, click, click, click. I have it held down. Click, 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 and and I get back, and shot after shot, terrible, awful, terrible. Just every one of them is just worse than the one before, and then, for some reason, you always nail one. There's always one that's in focus. I don't know why, I don't know how it works, but I know that it does. So the next time you're in one of these low light impossible situations, fire and fire and fire. Fire 30 shots, 40 shots, 50 shots. Who cares if 49 of them are out of focus if you get that one that's in focus? So don't be afraid to try that. All right, next, this is one, gosh, don't use cheap filters. Should you put a UV filter over the end of your lens? I used to, I don't anymore. Why do people do it? Because they're afraid of scratching the end of their lens. And the thinking is this: I'll take a cheap lens, a cheap filter made of glass, I'll screw it on over the other end of my lens. So if I hit something, it'll scratch the outside lens instead of the real lens on the inside. It's a good idea and it does work. If you're going to do this, don't buy cheap filters. I talk to people that will have a $3,000 lens or $2,800 lens, and I'll go, do you have a UV on it? Because they'll say, yeah, my shots aren't very sharp anymore. All right, let's just walk through things. Do you have a filter on? Well, yeah. What kind? Is it a Nikon or Canon? No, I bought a Charo $4 filter. I'm like, are you kidding me? Is it Charo? I'm like, are you kidding? You put a $4 piece of junk glass in front of your $2,800 expensive glass, and you're wondering, why do my photos look soft? That's why, right there, boom. So go get a Nikon brand. If you're a Nikon shooter, get a Nikon UV. If you're a Canon shooter, buy the Canon. If you're a Sony, buy the Sony. Don't buy a cheapie. Get rid of them. All right, next, I got a few quick lens tips. This next one's, it's a little awkward, but I think you probably need to clean your rear element. I know. So what is your rear element? I think you know what your rear element is. It's the back side of the lens, the part we never clean. We're always cleaning the front side. We got little cleaning cloths, and we're using microfiber adjustments. Microfiber cloth. We're cleaning it, but we never clean this side. The problem with this side is you get something on the rear element, it gets magnified. It literally gets magnified. I had this one lens, it was really sharp, and then I can't get it sharp anymore. Now my photos don't look good, and I know something's bad. And then finally I think, I wonder if it's my rear element. I pull it off, I look inside, I kid you not, a thumbprint. A thumbprint over it. At some point I was taking it off and my thumb must have hit in there. And it was making all of my photos off. So how do you clean that rear element? First off, I recommend highly getting a Giados Rocket Blaster. It is a dust removal tool. You squeeze it, it blows dust back in there and gets all the bad stuff out of the way first. That's a big one. Now I do have to give you a warning about this. It's obviously it's the #1 seller, it's a big one. But here's the thing, it doesn't travel well. Like if you put it in your camera bag, you know who's upset with this? TSA. They do not like to see anything in your baggage, your carry-on baggage, that looks like a rocket or a bomb. They just don't like it. But I have found a way to not only get through without them confiscating it, but they will put it back in your bag, zip it up, and send you on your way faster than anyone's ever been through TSA, ever. Here's all you have to do. They go through your bag, they go, "Excuse me, sir, what's this?" And you just simply say, "It's a medical device." And man, "Oh, sorry, sir, here you go. Thank you, thanks for coming. Bye, go out that way, you're out that way. Yeah, just go. Just saying. All right, so beyond that, let's look at another tip. This is a focusing technique for super fast lenses. Because I'll get people that'll buy an 85 1.8 and they're like, "Scott, my photos are out of focus." Like, most of my photos are out of focus. I go, "Are you doing focus and compose?" "Yes, I'm doing focus and compose." That's the problem. With lenses that are faster than 2.8, we have to use a different focusing technique to keep it looking sharp. You have to compose first. So if in this case you want your subject way over to the right, you move it way over to the right first. Get it composed first. See the red dot in the middle? Then you move the red dot over the eye, and then you fire. So it's not focus and compose. For super fast lenses, it's compose, then focus. And you'll get it right on them. Or use auto IO focus, which is the greatest thing ever. All right, let's talk about sharpening in post. So this is so critically important. And I wanted to do a demonstration that would show you how important sharpening after the fact is. Because I think I've heard from people that say, "Scott, I bought this really expensive camera body. I'm using a really sharp lens, a lens on that everybody online says is really super sharp. But my photos just don't look as sharp as what I'm seeing on the internet." And I'm like, so I did a test to show you why sharpening is so important in post. It's absolutely critical. The first shot you're going to see is the shot out of the camera. I took a $6,000 body, $2,800 lens, put it on a big heavy tripod, shot it indoors, shot a flower, everything controlled environment, cable release, whole 9 yards. That's the first shot you're going to see. The shot on the right is the after shot after I sharpened it in Photoshop. So on the left is what you get from $9,000, and then on the right is what you get by adding sharpening in post. Take a look. That's the out of camera shot on the left. It's never going to match the sharpened one on the right. You've got to sharpen in post. Every photo. Look at this one. I didn't change anything. Didn't change the brightness of the photo. The one on the left is not sharpened, and the one on the right is. Look at the wine bottle. The flowers. Look at this guitar. I didn't change the exposure or anything, just sharpness. Look at the volume knob. You know what's wrong with that volume knob? It's not turned up to 10. That's what's wrong. You really want to get the gain out of those humbucking pickups, you got to put that thing on 10. Let's move on. All right, there are 3 levels of sharpening. I'm going to take you through all 3 of them. There's capture sharpening, creative sharpening, and output sharpening. Capture sharpening is an absolute must. So what it is, capture sharpening replaces the sharpness that you lost because you're shooting in RAW. So when you shoot in JPEG mode on your camera, it automatically sharpens your photos. Does it automatically? It's part of its gig. When you shoot in RAW, your camera turns off the sharpening. So there's no sharpening applied in camera whatsoever, because you said, turn off all the stuff the camera does, I just want the RAW stuff. So there's no sharpening, there's no contrast, there's no vibrance, there's no any of the great stuff that it does to JPEGs. It doesn't do to RAWs, because you said, just give me the RAW photo. So it's so bad, and your images look so horrible when you shoot in RAW, that Adobe knows if we just showed them the RAW photo without any sharpening, they'd never use Lightroom again. So secretly, behind the scenes, it's the only setting that is applied to your photos. Everything's set to 0 and all through Lightroom. But if you go to the sharpening panel, they've already turned on the sharpening. They apply an amount of 40. That is put there by default. It's already sharpening your photos. The only slider that's moved, everything's set to 0, but not sharpening, it's set at 40. So, what's worse is that's new. They just recently increased it to 40. For the last 11 years, it was set down to 25. 25 wasn't enough. 40 is not enough. Can I tell you that? The new one, 40? I don't think it's nearly enough. I think it needs to be more like 50 or 60. 50, now how do you choose between 50 or 60? 50 if it's a softer subject, so if it's like flowers, 50. If it's a motorcycle, 60. In fact, if it's a motorcycle, I might go to 70. Like you can crank it way up if the thing has a lot of detail and a lot of edges, like the guitar or a car or a motorcycle. You can really crank the amount of sharpening. All right, and this just replaces the sharpening that's lost in this camera process, okay? Now, here's something interesting. Remember I said that JPEGs already have sharpening applied in camera? When you shoot in RAW, it turns them off. But do you know when you go to a JPEG, look, what's the sharpening set at? 0. Why do they set it at 0? Because JPEGs are already sharpened in the camera. All right, so that's capture sharpening. You should do it for every photo. Put a lot of sharpening on it. Number 2, creative sharpening. This is optional. You do not have to do creative sharpening. It's only if you want to. And you use creative sharpening simply to lead the viewer's eye. So we know that we're drawn to the brightest thing in the photo. We're also drawn to the sharpest thing in the photo. So for example, how do you do that in Lightroom? In Lightroom, you would do it, for example, let's go over to this image right here, using the adjustment brush. Double click on effect to set everything to 0. And then look, there's actually a sharpness slider. Crank that bad boy up. Let's go to 60. And then I'm going to paint over areas that I want you to look at. Like I can sharpen up, woo! Look at me sharpening up that license plate and that chrome in the front. Oh yeah. And maybe the headlights look like they could use a little sharpening too. Nice. And the nameplate in the front. That's it. Nice. Lots of nice crisp sharpening. That is creative sharpening. I am sharpening in areas where I want you to look. This is optional. You don't have to do it, but it does help draw the eye to the areas where you want to look. All right, the third one is called output sharpening. Output sharpening is based on where you're going to share the photo. So when you're leaving Lightroom and you're going to think, am I going to put it on Instagram? Am I going to put it on my website? Or am I going to send this to a photo lab? Or am I going to print it in-house? Then you use output sharpening. So where does this apply? In Lightroom, if you're leaving Lightroom, you would just go to the library module and click on, let's click on different photo. Let's click on export. In the export dialog, as you scroll down, you will see output sharpening, and it's off by default. You have to go and turn it on. So you have to go, I want output sharpening. Then it says, okay, where's this going? Are you doing it on Instagram or on your computer or on whatever? Or are you printing it on matte paper or glossy paper? You choose the one you want. In this case, I say I'm going to print on matte paper. How much sharpening are we going to apply? Low, standard, or high? Let me explain these three for you to understand. Low means off. When I choose low, I can't see anything. I can't see anything with the naked eye. Print it out, I can't see any difference. I don't know what low's for, but I always figure low is off. Standard means low. It means after all that sharpening, I'm going to apply a low amount of sharpening afterwards, but you can see it. High means standard. That means I'm going to apply a reasonable amount of sharpening. So what do I normally choose? I never choose low. I will normally always choose high, but if it's of a softer nature, I might choose standard. But I'm mostly choosing high. That's it. You don't get a preview. It's just a leap of faith. What it does is it looks at the pixel dimensions of your image, the resolution, the file size, all what you're going to do with it, and then it does the math behind the scenes to calculate the exact right amount of sharpening based on your settings. Now, if you're going to print this yourself, If you're going to the print dialog, give it a second. If you're going to print your own image, let's find a better template. That's kind of lame. That's kind of lame. Hang on, try to find a better template. I don't have a better template. Okay, so down here, the print job, there it is, print sharpening. Turn it on, same questions, low, medium, or high. What kind of media type, glossy or matte? It takes care of the rest. So as long as you're doing those things, you're going to be in good shape. Now, what if instead you go, Scott, I don't use Lightroom, so am I a host? Yes. No, you can use the unsharp mask filter in Photoshop. These are my everyday settings, 120, 1.1, and 3, and I apply that amount to almost every photo. That's my recipe if you're using Photoshop and you don't use Lightroom. All right, there are a couple of other sharpenings in Photoshop. If you really want to super sharpen something, there's high pass sharpening. High pass sharpening is this. High pass sharpening is, let's take this image right here, jump it over to Photoshop. It's a high res image, 50 megapixel. It looks pretty sharp, really. But here's how you do high pass sharpening. This is when you want super mega sharpening. Duplicate the layer, that's step one. Just make a copy, drag it down to the new layer icon, or press Command J on Mac or Control J on Windows. Next, go into the filter menu under Other. That's a weird place to hide it. And there it is, high pass, right there. Now when it comes up, drag the slider all the way to the left to where it's just completely gray. You're going to drag the slider over until you see lots of edges start to show up in your photo like you see here. Click OK. You're almost done. Go up to the little menu in the Layers panel over here that says Normal and change it to Hard Light and you're done. Where's Hard Light? Right there. Not Hard Mix, Hard Light. And you're done. And you're thinking, I don't know, did that really do that much? Let's turn it off and see. Watch. Oh, yeah. Take a look. Oh, that sharpened it up beautifully. Look over here, watch. Look at that license plate. It gets sharp. Look at the word Ford up there. Whoops, don't want to move it. There we go. Look at that is sharp. What do you think it's too sharp? If you think it's too sharp, you can go over here to the opacity slider and lower it. This is like undo. So just get it to where you want and Bob's your uncle. All right, so there's high pass sharpening. How about sharpening people? There is actually a different algorithm that we use or different type of sharpening we use for people. Now, if we're sharpening pictures of men, we just raise the amount slider and walk away because nobody cares about men. When it comes to women and children, now we don't want their skin to look crunchy, we care, we want it to look really great. There's a special thing in here that makes women's skin look wonderfully well in sharpening, and that is this. Go down here to the detail panel. Okay, unfortunate close in on the nostril. Let's just move that out of the way. Unfortunate a lot. Okay, so down here in the sharpening panel, let's increase the sharpening. Now, we want her skin to stay soft, right? What do we want to be sharp? Her hair, her eyebrows, eyelashes, iris, nostrils, lips, and the edges of her face, all the way around, and her, shoulders. Okay. So if I increase the sharpening a bunch, I'm going to go all the way up just to see, you're going to get craggly skin. That's not what we want. Now, the eyes are sharp and crazy and all that, but you got you got the old man in the skin playing chess part, or old man in the park playing chess skin. That's what you got. That's better. Anyway, but that's you wouldn't put on that much sharpening, but to give you an idea. So you want soft skin, not look great on a guy, wouldn't look great on a woman. All right, so here's what we do. We use this masking slider. I'm going to crank it all the way up just so I can show you. So the masking slider is this. Hold the Option key on Mac or the Alt key on Windows, click and hold, and the whole screen turns white. That tells you the whole thing is being sharpened evenly. As we drag to the right, anything that turns black is no longer being sharpened. There you go. So what's left? Hair, edges, eyebrows, eyelashes, eyes, nostrils, lips. It's like it does the masking for you. And now if I were to zoom in, even though I have this, the sharpening at 150, look, her skin's perfect, but her eyes are deadly sharp. So that's what it does. That is what the masking filter does. All right, so that was sharpening people, and that's it. That, my friends, is staying tack sharp. And now, and only now, is it time to take a break-a-rooney. And is that it? Oh, no, I'm sorry. I thought there was one more. I do have one more. It's called reducing camera shake. I thought there was one more. It's a quickie. So it's not removing. I want to point that out. It's not removing. It's reducing camera shake. So let me jump over to Lightroom. Grab this image. And look at, I tried to do a long exposure. Yeah, that worked out well. Holding with my hand. Dumb. But there is a way to maybe kind of save it. Let's go over to Photoshop. Photoshop's being slow today. All right, duplicate the image. I'm only duplicating the layer so I can show you before and after. It's not necessary to duplicate it. Go into the filter menu, under sharpen, and choose shake reduction. It's the very first choice. It comes up and it analyzes your photo and says, I see a blurry area there, I'll try to fix it. And you're like, yeah, what about this leaf? Draw a little square over it. It goes, I'll fix that too. Click OK, wait for a minute, and when it's done, we'll get a much sharper looking. It tries to anticipate the movement of your camera and all that stuff. It does a pretty good job of it. And so look at the difference before and after. It's not perfect, but it's a whole lot better. Look where we were before. Look, it's bad. And that's a whole lot better. So while it's not perfect, it's got me out of a jam in more than one situation. Okay, now and only now is it time for a final break. This is the last break of the day, coming up on the shortest class of the day, which is photo recipes, which is coming up after the break. I'm going to take a 1.5 minute break. When we come back, I'll be answering some Q&A. So stick around. We'll be right back with some Q&A. All right, we're back with some Q&A. So, Christina, what do we have going on in the chat queue?
Bob is asking about sharpening. He says in Lightroom or Photoshop in Camera Raw, sharpening, if you use the masking slider to apply sharpening, is this additive like detail sharpening using a brush, or is it modifying the 50 to 60 sharpening amount to the mask?
It is modifying the 50, it's only modifying the amount that you did in the detail panel with the amount slider. It's not affecting anything you did with a brush or anything else.
Catherine says, is the 70 to 200 f4 good for portraits?
Yes.
She says, I have that and not the f2.8.
The f4 is great. It's much lighter, much. It's like half the weight, it's half the price, and it's still very sharp. I don't think that you're going to notice a big enough difference. You're going to notice a difference in your wallet of about $1,400, but you're not going to notice $1,400 difference in the look. If you already have an f4, I would not go. I couldn't tell you with a straight face, you should go get the f2.8. I wouldn't.
Karen asks, can you use mirror lockup when using a back button focus?
Well, that's an interesting thing. They're two separate things. So the focus is one thing, and the mirror is another. So you could press the button and have focus. Whether you press the front button or the back button, it's not going to change anything. And then do mirror lockup, click, click. So yeah, they're disassociated from each other. They're completely different thingies. Your shutter still has to go up and down. You still have to focus. Yeah, they're unrelated. So yes, I haven't tried it, but they're unrelated. All right.
Can we use the color tones that you made that you're giving us in Bridge also?
Yeah, they will say they work the same in Camera Raw, sure. In the Camera Raw version that lives in Bridge, absolutely.
The landscape lens recommended was a 70 to 200 f4, I think, but for portraits, it's the more expensive. Is that the same question pretty much that we just had? Maybe it was just asked again.
The f2.8 is more expensive than the f4. The f4 is considerably less, $1,000 less.
Yeah. So it's okay to use both for landscape as well as portraits?
Oh yeah, sure,
F4.
Absolutely.
Easy wants to know, are there good alternatives to Lightroom?
There are alternatives to Lightroom. The On1 software suite is pretty good. Let's see what else. To Lightroom. So where Lightroom really kills it is the organization stuff. Lightroom's organization is really good. I don't think there's anything out there that does it nearly as well. But, you know, On1 I think is probably the closest. Capture One doesn't do the organization part. It does the developing part, but it's harder to use, and it's $300. So I'm going to say the On1 suite is probably your best bet.
Any idea when the Lightroom plugin for Instagram will function again?
I'm sorry, I couldn't hear you.
Any idea when the Lightroom plugin for Instagram will function again?
Oh yeah, I don't have any idea. You're not the first one to ask that. A lot of people have asked it. I think it has something to do with Instagram's API. I don't think it's an Adobe. It's not like Adobe doesn't want to do it or Adobe doesn't hear everybody complaining. I think it's on the Instagram side. So I have no idea if it will ever work again. I just don't know.
And Harvey's asking, what about Smart Sharpen?
Smart Sharpen is great, but I tried for years to get people to use it, and because everyone grew up using Unsharp Mask, people will not let it go. Smart Sharpen is better. It's a better algorithm. It's got more control. It's got a better dialog box. It's got a better preview. It's better in every way, and nobody will use it. So I stopped teaching it. I would teach it, and people would go, well, what about Unsharp Mask? That's what I use. Yeah. I finally gave up on it, but it's great. It's just nobody will use it.
The tripod that you talked about says it's the max height around 4 feet tall. I'm a female that's 5'8", and I'm always bending to see into my camera. Is there anyone that gets taller or goes
Oh man, they go to 10 feet. Sure. Go get a Gitzo or a Oben. Yeah, I mean, they'll go to B&H and look on their tripod page, and you'll have tripods that go literally, I'm not kidding, 8 feet, 10 feet tall. I have a picture of me standing under a tripod. I'm 6 foot. Well, I was at one point, and I'm standing under the tripods going over my head with the 3 legs, like 1, 2, 3, and the top is up above me. So yeah, they have tripods that go any height you want.
How do you use Photoshop to create different looks like you demonstrated in Lightroom?
You would just use Photoshop's Camera Raw. So inside of Camera Raw, in fact, I think, yeah, you can, the LUTs that I'm giving you will also install into Camera Raw. And you would use the Camera Raw filter, which is part of Lightroom, and you'll install them, and they're in the same little 4 buttons, the same little browser. They develop the develop module of Lightroom and Camera Raw at the same time. They're made by the same guy.
All right, I think that's good, and we can take a break, and we'll come back with the rest.
Yeah, we're going to take a short break. We'll come back and grab a few more questions. The last class of the day is the shortest class, so that's good. So stick around, we'll be right back. Are we going to grab some more Q&A, did you say?
Yeah, there's just a few more.
Oh, by the way, when this is all over in an hour or so, I'm going to stick around and answer questions. So if you don't get your question answered yet, don't worry. We'll be sticking around and answering afterwards. So we don't have a time limit afterwards. We'll just go deep into the night. And by that I mean not really. So stick around. We'll be right back. All right, we're back with just a couple of quick Q&As, then we're going to head back to class. So, Christina, what do we have in the Q&A department for a couple last quick ones?
Wim asks, how do you cope with the shines on the face?
Oh, so it's slightly different in Photoshop and Lightroom, but it's really easy. What you're going to do is you're going to use the spot healing brush to remove it. Let me see if I have an image that will let me show you that. So let me see if I have any shiny people. Shiny, happy people. Well, does she have a, let's see who's got some bright. Well, it looks like maybe she's got a bright spot on her nose, right? It's not a really hot spot, but I'm going to show you what you would do, just so you know. Get the spot removal tool, and you're going to go over and you're just going to completely remove it first. That's step one. Just make your brush a little bigger, and then it's completely gone, right? But it looks unnatural to have it completely gone, right? Let's just move it completely gone here. There we go. So what you would do is then you go and lower the opacity to bring a little of the highlight back without it looking shiny. Because if you go all the way, it gets shiny looking, so you're going to stop before there and just make the highlight there without the shine. You don't want to lose the highlight, you just want to lose the shine. All right, so that's it. Same thing you would do in Photoshop. You would just use the healing brush instead of the spot removal tool, and then you would go under the edit menu and choose fade to lower the opacity. Same thing. All right, one more and then we got to scoot.
I learned about the Instagram thing at another seminar of yours, and this is what I want to do. But how do you keep people from screenshotting your shots from Instagram? Maybe it's a dumb question, but everyone probably knows that they can learn from it.
Yeah, there's nothing you can do to stop people from screenshotting your stuff. If you put your stuff on the internet, there are people that can take it, but just realize they're going to take it this big. It's a little tiny screenshot. What can they do with it? They can't print it, they can't make a big canvas, they can't put it in their home. So, and I always tell people, look, if you put your images on the internet, anybody can take a screen capture. But if you don't put your images on the internet, then what? You're just going to keep them on your drive at home and just let it warm the drive. So it's just part of the world. It's just where we are. It's where things are. People can do it. Don't let that stop you from sharing your images. Your images need to be out there. We want to see them. I love looking at pictures. We all love looking at pictures. So put them out there so we can see them. Don't watermark them to death. It's not going to stop anybody from doing anything. All right. That's 2 questions. Let's get back to work. You guys ready? All righty. Now, Christina is going to have to bounce out of here in a little while, so let's just say goodbye to Christina, who was wonderful today. Thank you, Christina.
Thank you so much.
You're so well lit now. I hate to see you leave now that you're, after spending part of the morning in the dark, now you're back.
It's just part of like maybe one segment.
All right. Anyway, thank you, Christina. Ron will be here a little bit later to help us out with the questions at the end of the day. All right. So let's roll on. Let's do this class right here. So the last class of the day, as you can see, is called Photo Recipes, and it's ingredients for awesome images. All right. This first one we're going to look at is I call it adding light hits. I don't know what it is, but I know that people love it. I get asked about it all the time or comments about it. And here's a shot with the light hits. And people are like, oh my gosh, you were so lucky. You had such amazing light that day. And we're like, yeah, we were blessed. But actually, this is a Lightroom technique that adds interest to your photos. I do it in landscape and travel and whenever I can. And let's go look at how it's done. So let's take, that's a close up. Hold on. Let's go down here and look under, not that image, this one. Here we go. So here's the original image, the image that you just saw with the light hits applied. What does it look like without them? It looks like that. So the light hits are simply this. It's so simple. We're going to go in here to the exposure slider, bring it up, I don't know, 2.5, 2, whatever. Get a nice big brush, so hit the right bracket key a bunch to make your brush nice and big. And you're going to go throughout your image and you're just going to click once and leave little light hits. Now they're going to be too bright at first, but you're going to go back and then put a decent, bit on it. All right, once you get them all in, lower the amount to where it looks better, and that's it. That's your light hits. It just makes your light look so much more interesting. So here's a before and after. So look, It just adds this like little bit of light here and there. And I used to be really careful, like I'm only going to put it where highlights are, and then I realized nobody cares. So you just drop those on there. Again, big brush. My brush might have been a little too big there. I'll make my brush a little smaller. And just single clicks, like click, 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 click. Just little hits of light here and there. They're still a little big, aren't they? And then maybe one or two over here. And then lower the opacity to where it looks okay. And that's it. That's your light hits. It's just a really quick one. All right, next. How do we get lots of questions about how to shoot the stars and the Milky Way? It's honestly a surprisingly easy thing to do because it is a recipe. It's a certain set of settings that work again and again and again. You just got to set it up right. In fact, it's the things that are not camera related that are the hard part. Because to get a good Milky Way shot, or even a good shot of the stars, like the kind that you really want, there's a couple things you got to do. First one is you need a sky like this. You need a black sky. So what that means is you need no light pollution whatsoever. So when you're in a city or town, or even outside a city or town, there is light pollution. It is just light there, and you don't realize it's there. And you can't get away from the light pollution by driving 15 minutes or 30 minutes or even an hour outside the city. From where we are in Tampa, Florida, we have to drive about 3 hours to get to an area that has a low enough light pollution to be able to shoot the Milky Way. So how do you know where to go? Well, you can go to websites like lightpollution.info. So it's like a .com, but it's a .info. And the pink area is where, like, forget about it. The yellow, forget about it. The green, forget about it. The blue, the light blue, and kind of forget about it. The dark blue, okay. But when you get into the gray and the black, that's how far away you have to drive, in this case, from Phoenix, hours literally, to get away, to be out in the middle of nowhere, to find a good place to shoot. That's really, honestly, that's the hard part, is getting to an area where there's no light pollution. That's the challenge. And also, so once you find an area with no light pollution, you're not quite done. You have to have no clouds, 0 clouds. Can't have any clouds in the sky. And you don't want light pollution from the moon. The moon is a major source of light pollution, so you need to shoot during the new moon. You don't want to shoot when it's a half moon or a full moon or a 3/4 moon. So when do you know to shoot? You get to shoot once a month. Go to the phases of the moon, which you can find online. Just Google it, and it will tell you, or use PhotoPills app, the most amazing app ever. And you want to shoot on a new moon where there's no light pollution whatsoever. Even the waning crescent or the waxing crescent, both of those there's still a little bit of light there. Ideally, you're going to shoot with no light pollution on a new moon. Now, once you get that stuff out of the way, the rest is easy. What lens do we use? Super wide angle. There are 2 lenses that people love. The Rokinon 24 1.4. Now, why do you need a 1.4 lens? A manual focus at that for shooting the stars. Because the stars are really far away. They're like way, way far away, like crazy. And you think, oh, I got enough light. You don't. Not only are you going to have to shoot it like f1.4, you're still going to have to crank your ISO up. We'll talk about that in a second. But that's a real popular one with photographers, and it is 1.4. Also, Rokinon makes a 14 millimeter f2.8. Now the 2.8, this is why these are so popular. It's only $350. This one's less than $500. Nice lens too. This one's less than like around $350, which are crazy prices for great, really popular sharp lenses. But that's where we're at. Also, of course, you're going to be shooting at night, open for numerous seconds. You're going to need a tripod. All right, how are you going to focus? So you're on a tripod. You got one of those super wide angle lenses. You're at like f1 point whatever. You're going to need to turn on live view. Zoom in 10 times. So that's one of the great things about live view. You can zoom in, remember, before you take the shot. And you're going to have to zoom in there and do a manual focus on your things. You're going to have to bump up your ISO to crazy amounts. Again, you got to make the camera more sensitive to light. How much you're going to bump up your ISO? Do not freak out when I tell you these numbers. A minimum of 1600, probably 3200, maybe 64. But here's the thing, and this is what you got to understand. I know you're freaking out. I'm freaking out. Let's freak out. No, here's the thing. When you shoot the night sky, you're not going to see the noise like you do in a regular photograph. You get away with numbers that you would never use any other time. So if you're shooting at 3200, you're going to be surprised how little noise you'd see versus what you'd see in a restaurant shooting at 3200. So really, really important. So you're going to bump up your ISO. Now, how do I know how long my shutter speed's going to be? You're going to use photo pills. You're going to go to photo pills and it'll tell you exactly how long of a shutter speed you need. But I can give you a range, by the way. You can use their app. I mean, it's part of their app. Use the thing called Spot Stars and it'll tell you exactly. But your exposure is going to be somewhere between 15 or 30 seconds. You can't go over 30 seconds. Why? Because the rotation of the Earth will make your stars out of focus. So yeah, we could do a 14-minute exposure just to get more light, but the problem is, because the Earth rotates, if you go over 30 seconds, in fact, you probably won't even get to 30 seconds. You're probably going to be 15 to 20 seconds, somewhere in there. Because if you go any longer, because of the rotation, you're just going to get blurry photos. So that's why we have to bump up the ISO. That's why it's so important. All right, what are going to be your post-processing tricks? There are 3 sliders that make all the difference in the world. Dehaze. You will not believe what dehaze does for your Milky Way photos. Dehaze is, honestly, it's the magic slider. It and clarity. So clarity brings out detail and makes it look sharper. Dehaze cuts through any atmospheric haze and it does an amazing job. The texture slider is kind of the cousin of clarity. It's not as useful for Milky Way shots as clarity is, but I just want to let you know you can use them both. And then lastly, to get the color that you want, the purplish color or the magenta color, you're going to use the white balance, temperature, and tint sliders. So that is the recipe. The hard part of all this, getting out of town to an area where there's no light pollution. That's the hard part. The easy part, the camera settings, 15 to 30 seconds on a tripod. Aim up with a Rokinon lens or any wide angle lens that you have that's like that. If you have a 16 to 35 f2.8, that'll do it. You don't have to go buy a new lens, but I just want to let you know how inexpensive those very popular lenses are. All right, let's move on. Architectural black and white. First off, I love black and white. Love it, love it, love it. Jennifer Price's quote is just great. And the architectural look we're talking about is this look. Super crisp, dark, contrasty image with a super blown out, bright, almost white sky that looks like it just goes up forever. So what is the recipe to get this kind of shot? Because it's multiple things. Number one is, how do I take it? Well, you have to use a wide angle lens. I'm using a 14, but I use either a 14 or 16. And then this is critical. I have the picture of me taking this shot. You have to aim up. That's it. Aim up. That's me taking the shot that you just saw. Aim up. So I rest the camera above my eye. And then, of course, you want to compose. I mean, there's composition here. You want to compose it in an interesting way, but it's basically you're aiming up. Now, here's a couple other shots that look like that, right? Same kind of look. So the first part of this is how do we convert to black and white? So let's do that. Let's jump over to Photoshop and look at our black and white conversion. All right, so that's the first part. So here's that image you saw a moment ago in the presentation, right? So how do we get to this? Well, let's look at the original. Ready? Ugh. That's the original. That's the one I stood there and took. Yep, that didn't look very cool. Nope. So it's a rainy, lunny day. It's a lunny day. No, it's a rainy day in London, which is a lunny day. So what do? Well, we convert to black and white. How do we do it? It's important how we do it. So remember those 4 little squares that we clicked on for the profiles, you know, the color toning stuff, click on that, scroll down, and you will find 17 different black and white conversions. So what's nice is you get an on-screen preview. So if you move your cursor over one of them, it shows you what it's going to look like. Woo! Look at that one. Look at that one right there. Look, watch. Woo! So if you find one you like this, click on it, and that's your black and white conversion. If you drag to the left, it's less. Takes you back to the beginning. Drag to the right, it's more. I'm going to drag to the right, and we're almost there, right? So now I can close the profile browser and add the standard stuff you would to a black and white image, but I blow out the highlights. I take the highlights and blow them out so the sky pretty much looks blown out. Add some contrast, a little bit of clarity, and actually lower the exposure now. There we go, and something like that, and we're done. So it's easy to get to that black and white look. Now, once you've got one that looks like you like it, like take a look at the next image, right? Just taking around the corner from the one that you just saw. But if I want to apply the same settings to this image, this is such a great little trick. See that button called Previous? If I hit Previous, it's going to apply to this photo what I did to the previous photo. Watch. Boom. Done. How about the next one? It's the Lloyd's of London building. Boom. Done. Now you could say, well, it's a little dark in here. Well, go open the shadows up, bring up a little more detail, and now you're done. So it's just that easy to make these. It's very, very simple. Make these really super high contrasty, modernish looking kind of things. Now, there's another kind of black and white I want to turn you on to, and that is the fine art black and white that's really very, very popular right now. People are winning a lot of photo contests with this kind of stuff. It's very popular. And it's where you take a regular looking photo like this one I took in Shanghai like 8 years ago, and you make it into something really interesting and dramatic and all that. And I'll show you some more pictures that are kind of like that. So this is a bridge in Tokyo. It's a building in Dubai. It's another building in Tokyo. This one is shot through my taxi window while I'm driving, of the condos. That's right down the street from my hotel in Hong Kong. I'm sorry, Tokyo. This is in Amsterdam. This is the Walt Disney Theater in Los Angeles. So how do you do these? All right, it's actually easier than you'd think, but it's a few steps. It's a Photoshop thing. So let's grab an image. Let's grab, which image do I want to grab? Let's grab this one. So you can make it black and white now. You could do the little thing that we did. Grab a thing, go to the black and white, and just choose a black and white image. Maybe that one looks kind of good, B&W 04, and crank it up a little. Look, we're getting that sky pretty dark, but we'll hit close. And then we'll take it over to, and you can add the, make it look good as a, add contrast, add some clarity, that kind of stuff. And whoops, I went a little too far. And okay, let's go over to Photoshop, because the magic happens over in Photoshop. How do you get that black sky? Well, we're going to put one in. So first, let's take this image over to Photoshop, and then I want to select just the building, not the sky. So there is a tool in here called the quick selection tool. What it does is, as you paint over the building, it makes a selection of it. So it selects that part of the building. That way we can work on just this part of the building and not the sky and not the rest. So let's just select it as best we can. There we go. And make sure we get all the windows, because I'm famous for missing some. All right, I think we've pretty much got this building selected. We've painted over it. Oh, there's one. I knew I was going to miss one. All right, and then over here, I think we accidentally selected those clouds. We don't want that. Okay, and there's a little bit more. Let me just use the lasso tool here and get this little bit of cloud action. That is, I did that completely wrong. Let me hold the Option key and get rid of that. Okay, that's not some of my best selection work, but you get the idea. Okay, I want to put that up on its own layer, so I press Command J on Mac or Control J on Windows, and look, it's just that building. Now, I want to fill the background with black. How do I do that? I make a new blank layer, so at the bottom right next to the little trash can, you click the plus sign, and you fill it with black. And there you go. Your sky's filled with black. Sadly, it's in front of the building instead of behind it, so go to the layers palette and drag it behind the building, and now you've got a black background. So how do we make the dramatic light? That's the fun part. Go to the filter menu and choose Camera Raw Filter, and it's going to bring up that filter I showed you earlier that has the same sliders in all his Lightroom. We're going to grab the adjustment brush. We're going to, well, before we grab the adjustment brush, let's darken this image. Let's darken it way up, way dark. Crazy dark, like that. Now, the rest of this is all done using the very last tool here in the toolbar at the top. It is the radial filter. So the radial filter, let's make it really bright, like 2.5 stops. And then down here, we want the changes that we made to affect what's inside our oval. It makes ovals. So we're going to make an oval of light right here. And we'll actually make it a little bit brighter. We can put this anywhere we want. It is our dramatic beam of light. I'm going to put it, watch, I can move my cursor outside it and it becomes a two-headed arrow. I can rotate my circle. So I'm going to let a little bit of it spill onto this side of the building, like that. And if I want to move it, I grab the little green dot in the middle and I can move it up or move it down. So you can have it put as much, or you can make it wider or thinner. I mean, you have complete control over it. Now, instead of making a new one every time, what I do once I make one is I right-click right on the green dot and I hit duplicate. And it makes a copy. So then I can come over here, rotate this, and I can, it's too bright, right? And just make a little bit of light over there. Then let's go back to here, right-click and make another one. So at this point, it's just now up to your artistic bent, right? There's no right or wrong way to do this. You can just, I think I'll put a little light right in there. Duplicate. Let's go over here and put a little light going this way and find a good place for it. Maybe rotate it a little. And I'm just kind of winging it here. I'm just trying to find where I think it looks interesting, because this is literally, it's not based in reality, right? It's just art. So maybe I peek a little bit of it on this this side here, and we click OK, and you can see we've got that dark dramatic light kind of where we want, but it still doesn't look right. And that's because we're missing the long exposure clouds, the long streaky clouds in the background. Now you can go, after you've done this, you can go to the filter menu, bring up Camera Raw, and you can make it either darker and make the highlights brighter. So you have control after the fact if you want to make it more dramatic or less dramatic or whatever. Here's a before and after. So you can make it really dramatic. Now let's add the clouds behind there. So we add a new blank layer and drag it behind the building. So what we draw is going to happen behind the building. And we're going to go and grab the polygonal lasso tool. And you're going to go click, 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 and you're drawing your clouds. And look how realistic these clouds look. It's amazing. Okay, it's kind of lame, but it doesn't really matter. All right, and when you get back to where you started, a little circle shows up, click, and you've come full circle. Whoops, I accidentally deselected what I just drew. Let's draw another one. Click, 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 click. It's just random shapes, like kind of pterodactyl looking. We're going to fill them with white, like clouds. Press Option Delete on Mac or Alt Backspace on PC, and it looks horrible. Let's go to the filter menu, under blur, and choose Gaussian blur and add a 70 pixel blur, and it looks horrible. How are we going to rescue this? The last step, filter, blur, and you're going to choose motion blur. When the motion blur dialog box appears, you're going to put it at an angle and increase the distance to 2000. And that's where you get the soft, streaky clouds. There we go. Streaky clouds across the sky, making my image take flight. Look at that. There's something weird like a hair in my image. How do we get rid of that? The eraser tool, and say, why is there a hair in my image? Okay, there we go. That was a selection mistake, so let's just get rid of that better. There we go. Took a little chunk out of the building. So that is your final move, and you can lower the opacity if you want, if you think the clouds are too bright. And that's how you get that deep, dark, architectural fine art look. And that gives you something to mess around with and get. Of course, I made videos that go into much greater detail and all, but that's for you. So that's how we get to that look. Okay, moving on. Of course, I did make a video for you on that. So jumping on, we're over in Iceland. This is a spot that's usually packed with people. And when I show people this shot, they go, how did you get it with no people? That place is always packed. Well, I cheated. So there are a lot of people there, a ton of them, in fact, and me in my red jacket. That's me. What was the trick? It's one I've used for many years. I just tipped my camera right above the heads of the people. Look at the people making out over on the left here, husband and wife. They're like going at it. It's not good. Anyway, on the in the center there, I'm just tipped right above their heads. So when they see the shot, I don't know why, but nobody ever goes, I can't fully see the ground. Just tip above their heads. It works like magic. Now, how did I get this shot? This shot is something that's very hard for photographers to do. It's a very, very hard technique. It's called patience. There's all these people there. So I set my tripod up and I said, I'm just going to wait till I get a break. Here's the thing that people don't realize. To get a shot like this, you don't need 5 minutes where there's nobody there, because you're not going to get it. Not in Iceland. Well, maybe right now, but most of the time, no. You don't need that. All you need is like 2 seconds. Like 2 seconds just for a long exposure. I got an ND filter on there. That's all you need, like maybe 2-3 seconds. So I just waited, and everyone's leaving little by little. Some people walk in, some people walk out. I had this one family that just wouldn't leave. They finally left, and that one guy was there. I kind of liked leaving it because it left a kind of a sense of scale. But how did I get everybody else out of it? Well, when the last family was leaving, 2 other families were coming up from the sides. One on this side, one on that side. And so there's some over here, some over here. And there's 2 ways to go about this. The right way to do it is this. They're just about to walk into my frame and they go, is it okay if I take a shot real quick? Just let me, is it okay? Is it okay? You know what they say? Oh yeah, sure. And they stop and they wait. So I get ready to shoot and I can see, uh-oh, here comes another couple. I'm like, wait, stop. No, do the same thing to them. Is it okay if I take it? It's all right, thank you. 1,000, 2, 1,000, 3, done. Great, thanks guys. And then they walk in. I see photographers do the other method, which is horrible. Someone's walking up and they go, hey, can you give me a minute? Can't you see I'm trying to take a shot? I got a tripod. Come on. Hey, hey. You know what that does? That makes them walk right into your photo and stay as long as possible. Just be nice. Just be nice in general. It's a good thing. But especially be nice when you're a photographer, because your chances of success are better. Number 2, it's good karma. Number 3, you make it better for the next photographer who is nice. All right, so that's that. Next, shots like this I used to think were out of reach for me because I don't have $2,000, $3,000, $4,000 to spend on these incredible dresses that you see all these people in New York using. Until I found out you can rent them. You can rent them, and it's cheaper than you think. You can get these incredible, crazy dresses and rent them. I found a place called Inception Rentals. You can rent one of these crazy dresses. Look at the one on the bottom right corner. It is a gown that is braided into a parachute. You can throw it up in the air and make crazy looks. I love the one in the left corner. 3-day rental, $149. Top one, 3-day rental, $124. They ship it to you, you rent it, you do the shoot, you send it back. You wind up doing shoots that you would never be able to do because they're just great outfits at incredibly low prices. I'm just one of their customers. I don't work for them. InceptionRentals.com. Now, how did I light that shot? Just in case you were wondering, one light. Whole thing's lit with one light. One big softbox and a gray backdrop. You can't even see the backdrop. I thought you would be able to, but the dress covered everything. I did put up a large white reflector to bounce some of that light from the Octabank back onto the subject because it is fashion. I do need the dress lit. All right, now here's the technique. Get some friends, count it 1, 2, 3. They toss it in the air and jump backwards. They all have to kind of move out of the way, and then it really comes down to the timing. I bought a fan, or rented a fan. I didn't buy a fan. I rented a Hollywood fan to keep it up there. Those dresses are so heavy, it didn't do anything. That's why we had to grab 4 people and throw it. And then it really is about getting the timing where her pose is great and the cloth looks really cool. Now, that took 4 people to throw it in the air. You can also get the 3-person version. 1, 2, 3, grab it, throw it in the air. Take a look at number 2, and then there it is. And if you get the timing right, you can get some really unique looks. And if you get the timing wrong, it looks like that. It's not good. You can do a much smaller dress too. Another rented. These are all rented. Throw it in the air, jump out of the way. Here's the behind the scenes shot with a 16mm lens. And there you go. Now you're going, Scott, you used a wide angle lens. Yes, I did. Because it is an environmental portrait. So the whole idea is to capture the subject in the environment. Like the environment is as important. I'm not trying to make a portrait, I'm trying to make an environmental portrait. And I'm trying to make sure that my subject isn't anywhere near the edges, like her face or anything isn't distorted, and it actually can work pretty well. You just have to be very careful with it. By the way, besides renting stuff, you can go on Amazon and buy stuff. I got these sunglasses, which wound up on the cover of one of my books for $8. Just $8. Sometimes the accessories can make a really big difference. By the way, here's how to do that lighting look that we're doing for her. It's one light right directly in front. So it's not off to the side. It's a very flat look, but it's a particular look that looks nice. It's a beauty look. And then if you have a friend, you'll use them to hold a reflector to bounce some of that light back so there's not circles under her eyes or her chin. But look, you know and I know, you're a photographer, you don't have any friends, so you'll need a second softbox. That one does the same thing as the reflector. You aim it from the bottom and you don't make it nearly as bright as the top one. And it just fills in the shadows and the under the eye. Now, if you've got a third softbox, you can do something really cool. Aim it up at the ceiling. What does that do? It does 2 things. By aiming at the ceiling, it doesn't put a lens flare into your lens. Number 2, it gives you an absolute solid white background without having any mess with anything. But number 3 is it sends the light forward. Sends the light forward so you get really nice sculpting on her cheeks and stuff. So take a look. Here's what it looks like. Look at number 7. Remember you saw that one earlier? Now you know how it was shot. You know the technique for how that photo was taken. Now, again, easy, simple. This hat was like $18. Like, it makes all the difference in the world. That hat transforms the shot. Here's the behind the scenes shot. Look, it's the same thing. Light in front, another softbox down below aiming up. Where do you get all this stuff? JJ's house. So the dresses come from Inception Rentals, but all the accessories, it's a place called JJ's house. Look at that. I mean, so look at that second hat with the flower and all that. It's $24. Look at the bottom row second one. $29. What a cool hat. So just a couple of sources that I've been using. All right, next. Tripod. You know what happens when you set one up? Things go bad fast. I don't know what it is with tripods. You set up a tripod anywhere, people lose their mind. If you're not out in like the middle of a landscape, you try to set it up in a city or do a travel shot, man, they go crazy. What's my secret weapon? My secret weapon is a platypod. Now, a lot of you that watch my grid know that I'm a big platypod fan, and I'm friends with the guy that owns it, Larry, who is actually a pediatrician that is crazy about photography. So he's helps children by day and shoots photography by night, and he's just a really cool guy. So anyway, he created this platypod, which is made of commercial aircraft aluminum, so it weighs nothing, literally fits in your shirt pocket. You put a ball head on it, and now you've got what acts like a tripod, but doesn't make people mad because it doesn't look like a tripod. So what you're able to do is to use this to shoot in places where tripods are forbidden, like the Venice Opera House. Look at the great low angle. So because of the low angle I'm at, you can't see all the tourists sitting in the seats on the left. There's a tour group actually in the house, but you can't see them because I got my platypod on the ground, aiming up, and it gives you this epic look and a unique look, and nobody says anything. I'm in the Vatican in Rome now. We're in Rome. I'm in the Vatican where tripods are forbidden. If you take out a tripod in the Vatican, they will have a sniper take you out. Like a sniper with a Barrett 50 cal will literally pick you off right there, and they bury you someplace and you're never seen from again. It's very sad. Anyway, but and here's the shot. Everybody else is hand holding, trying to get shots, and they're at 3200 ISO. Not me, right? The Admont Stift library where tripods are forbidden in Austria. There's my platypod with my Tamron, 15 to 35 on parade. All right, so I told you I know the guy that owns it, that owns platypod. And when I started doing this seminar, I told him, I said, I'm going to be showing the platypod. You got to give me a deal. You got to give me a deal off for people that are watching. So give me a second here, and I've got a deal that they gave me for you, which is 20% off, which is not a bad deal. I believe this is the right code. You've probably seen it on screen. Kelby NE20. So I believe that is the right code. So it is not good through April 1st. I think it is good through, it's 2 weeks basically is what they give you from now. So it says April 1st, but we know that's wrong. In fact, Jason could probably find the date for you. Yes, June 2nd, there you go. It is Kelby NE20 to June 2nd, May 26th to June 2nd. They give you 20% off of any of their stuff. It's the best. You'll love it, and you'll be able to get away with murder as far as using tripods go. Okay. Back to our story. So take a look at this image. This is in the hallway in the Paris Opera House, the Palace Garnier, and it's very, very, very packed full of people all the time. So a buddy of mine went in there. We did set up a tripod, and we were immediately busted by the guards who said, you can't set up a tripod. They looked at us like we were crazy. Well, it didn't matter because there were so many people in there, tourists packing it full, that wouldn't have helped. So how do you get a shot like this without a tripod and with no people? Well, number one, I used the platypod. You got figured that out already. How about the no people? I've learned a trick. It works amazingly well. Here's the trick. Go on a tour, but tour's the last tour of the day. Whatever the last tour is, get on that last tour, because when the tour's over, there's nobody left in the place. Now, I set up my tripod, my platypod. I set it on a rail, getting ready to take the shot. The tour group leader's like, we have to go. And I'm like, can I just take one quick shot? Come on, just one shot. American, go ahead. I got the shot. You can see I got the shot there. Sharp, crisp, nobody in there. Very rare shot for that place. Not that it's not been done, but it's very rare to get it. So then we go downstairs. I want to take another shot. I'm the last one out. The guard closes the little roping stanchion, and the stairs of the Palace Garnier are beautiful. It's a whole beautiful area, but it's always packed full of people sitting on the stairs and just people everywhere, hundreds of them, unless you're the last one out. And then there's nobody there but you. So I'm standing at the rope and stanchion, put my platypod on top of one of the poles, and there you go. So being the last one, that's a little trick I'm passing on to you for travel photography. Speaking of travel photography, here we are, we're traveling. I think this is, where are we? Right here, Phoenix. And remember I told you this morning that there was going to be a long exposure trick I was going to show you later in the day. And by the way, we're almost done here. So if you're looking at your clock and going, I thought we were going to end 5 minutes ago. We're going to end 5 minutes more. Back to our picture from Phoenix. So the long exposure trick I want to tell you is this. While your shutter's open, if things are moving, they will disappear. So I'm at dawn, we get up, we go out to this bridge. It's, I can't think of the name of the bridge. It's not the Rialto Bridge, it's the other one, Academia Bridge. And all this boat traffic's coming through there, everything from garbage boats to taxis to water, private boats, they're all coming through there. But because I'm doing a long exposure, they're all going to be gone. As long as they're moving, they will disappear in the image. Now look at the nice streaky clouds. You can see the streaks in the water, but not a single boat. And 20 boats probably came by while I had my shutter open. And I added a brown tint to it at the end, like a brown sepia tone. I did that in Lightroom just go to the split toning panel. I raise the saturation to 18 and the hue to 36 and done. Don't touch the balance or the highlights or any of that stuff. Just, it's a nice, it prints beautifully too, by the way, if you make a print. All right, now, getting down low is the thing, but my friend Mimo Madani also turned me on to a trick. He says, look for tiny puddles. I'm like, tiny puddles? How small? He's like, really small, like this. Now, I did not have my platypod with me. Where was my platypod? Back in my hotel room. Why wasn't it with me? Because I'm stupid. So anyway, I had to put my camera down in the street because now I'm addicted to low shots. Because when you, and look how small this puddle is to really get you the idea. But you know what? Mimo taught me. You get your camera right down there low, like with a platypod, you can make magic with that little puddle. And he's right. That little puddle is gold, baby, gold. So that's what I'm on the lookout. Now, I did this next one Mimo style. He's very black and white, dark edges, real dramatic kind of style, but I love his style. Now, the next one I'm going to show you is before I was using a platypod. I was in Venice, but here's what we had to do. And this is the days before platypod. It was awful. You would take to get low like that, you had to take your tripod, you had to take out the center column, turn it upside down, put it through the legs, so your legs are like this and it's going down. Attach the ball head, attach your camera upside down. Yes, you would shoot upside down. Then later in Photoshop, you take the picture, rotate it back up. But that was the only way we could get down that low. Of course, now with platypods, we don't ever shoot upside down, we shoot regularly. We don't do all that stuff with the tripod, we just drop a platypod and boom, it's done. But I want to show you the two things put together. The low angle, well, the three things. Low angle, the reflection from a small little bit of water, and the long exposure. I put a 10-stop ND on, so the people, as long as they're moving, they'll disappear. Here's the behind-the-scenes shot. So look at the small puddle. Look at how small that little puddle is. It's like a ½ inch deep. See all the people? I'm going to do a long exposure, and they're going to be gone. So that's the magic of long exposure. It's not just for streaky clouds. I've got streaky clouds, but you get rid of the crowds and you get that great water reflection. I mean, you put this stuff together and it just really comes out nice. All right, I need you to get, you watching, I need you to do something. Get your cell phone camera out right now because I'm going to have you shoot and photograph something on screen. So grab your cell phone. I'll wait, there's no rush. I'll have a little water. Go ahead. That's the end of the water. That's great. Okay. Got your cell phone? Take a picture of this. This is where, and keep it out, we're going to take 2 pictures. This is where the videos and the extra download stuff for the Milky Way and for additions I added to the workbook are. This is also where the LUTs are and all the videos and a bunch of stuff. It's all right there. These are just for you guys. Made it just for you. It's part of your seminar. All right, did you get a picture of that? Ready to take another picture? All right, here we go. I made a gear guide of every single, well, thank you, Ron. Woo! Of every single piece of gear I mentioned this entire day. So I have it for download for you. You can get that also from this address, bit.ly/sk-gear-guide. And it's all the stuff I mentioned today, the exact names, info, direct links, all that stuff. All right, let's wrap this bad boy up. So here's this shot. Because people say, oh, you got to have a great location to shoot portraits. No, you don't. I'm literally inside of a storage bin and the roof is rusted away. The floor has rusted through and plants are growing up, so we are literally in a storage bin. Now, the light's harsh, so what do we put up there? One-stop diffuser. So now I know the light's going to be good. How am I going to get the background out of focus? I'm shooting an 85mm f1.8. So, simple stuff. Diffuser over her head, a $500 portrait lens, and let's take a look at the image. The nice background out of focus, the light looks great, It's so easy when you have the right tools. And what do we spend on the tools? $9 on the diffuser and less than 500 bucks on the lens. All right, I've been saving this one for last. How do you get this shot? Well, you can tell you get up early because the water's still. It's that still morning water. You got some nice clouds and stuff in the background, fog rolling in, which luckily it's over there instead of where we are, which it's normally where we are. You got that nice fall day. Or do we? No, it wasn't a nice fall day. The fall day was created with an effect I've been waiting all day to show you. Often when I show this effect, people at home will pass out, black out, be on the floor in the fetal position. Some will go to the kitchen and get some food. But those people are unlucky because they're going to miss the magic that happens all inside of one dialog box. It's this dialog box right here in Photoshop. Everything great happens there. Let's go look. How is this miracle done? Let's jump over here. It's going to open sometime, I know it. There it is. Okay, we got it open in Photoshop. First step, go to Image, Mode, and choose LAB color. Now nothing happens when you do this, it looks the same. Then the rest happens right here. Image, Apply Image. You do two changes. You change your blending mode to overlay. Doesn't look too cool. Then you go to the word channel. You choose channel B. And when you do, it's fall. That's it. Instant fall color. And you can lower the opacity if you think it's too much. That's it. All right, let me show you another one because I can tell that you were enthralled by your lack of response. Let's go grab another image over here. Not that one, this one. It's kind of ugly image too. Oh, I quit Photoshop. Good job. I meant to quit the window. Close the whole thing. Not my greatest moment. Here we go. Convert to lab color. Go to Apply Image. Make sure this is set to Overlay. Set this to Lab. Boom. Fall. Look. And then you can use the opacity. Just drag to the left if you want it to be like September, October, you know, whenever you want. All right. So there are three things that I hope that you picked up from today. I hope you picked up more than three, but three main overarching things. Number one is how important good light is. Whether you're shooting people or landscapes or whatever you're shooting, good light matters. Whatever it is, a product shot, people, sports, it always matters. It's always important. Number two, doesn't matter what you're shooting. If you make it simpler, it's going to be stronger. Your messages are going to be stronger and your job is easier. It's not what you add that makes photos great. It's what you take away. And lastly, Lightroom is awesome for editing. It's where I spend 85% of my time. But I want you to think about what Lightroom really does. It organizes your photos, which is good, and it makes things brighter or darker. It adds contrast, lets you adjust the light in the photo, and it adjusts your white balance. That's all great, important stuff. But Photoshop is where you make magic. Photoshop is where you create reflections. Photoshop is where you replace skies. Photoshop is where you make it fall. Photoshop is where the magic is. And so in the next week or so, we're going to send you guys an email out for a class that I did. It's free for you, and it is literally just Photoshop in 1 hour. So if you've never used Photoshop or you're just getting into it, go watch this class. It's really 1 hour and 4 minutes, but I get emails about it all the time from people who've watched it, and it'll jumpstart you fast on Photoshop. If you've never used it before, you're just kind of, I'm not sure what I'm doing, it will help you in a huge way, and it's free. It's part of your day here. So I want to leave you with a quote. The only photographer you should compare yourself to is the one you used to be. And I wish we could give credit because we don't know who said this quote. Well, heck, if we don't know who said it, I'll say it. Hey, we're just making up stuff. I'll go ahead and knight me as well. There we go. All right. Well, guys, thank you so much for spending this day with me. I hope you found it really helpful and useful, and I hope you make the best pictures that you've ever made from it. Now, we are going to say goodbye, but then we're going to come back in 2 minutes, and Ron is here, and he's going to help us do our Q&A. So if you put some Q&As in the chat, we're going to go through those in just a minute. But I'm going to, oh, I got a fresh bottle of water there. You could jump up and grab a fresh bottle of water or any adult beverage that you prefer. Come back, and we're going to answer your questions in 2 minutes. Now, I know that some of you are not going to stick around for that because you've been here with me all day, and you're probably about done with me. So for those of you that are gone, thank you. Thank you so much for spending the day with me. I really appreciate you guys all showing up today. We had a wonderful turnout for this, and we're very grateful indeed. For those of you who are sticking around, stick around. I'll be back in 2 minutes. Well, friends, it's Q&A time. And look, Christina's gone, but Ron lives on. I don't know what that means. But anyway, there's Ron. Hey, Ron.
Hey, how's it going, everybody?
So let's see what's in the Q&A chat.
All right, first question. Do mirrorless cameras have micro adjustment setting, or is it just DSLR?
For the lenses?
It doesn't specify.
Yeah, no, the micro adjustments are for the lenses. I believe they do, and I would run over to my camera room, which is right over there, but my mirrorless is at my house. So here's an easy way to know. Go to your manual, type in the word micro adjustment, and if it comes back no such thing, then you know yours don't. I think that they do because it is a lens issue. I don't think it's a DSLR versus, but it'd be easy enough to check. In fact, if you give me just a second, I could probably check for you. I've got so many camera manuals on my, let's see, do I have the EOS R manual, which is a, I believe I have it, yeah. That's the user's guide. Hang on, let me see. Oh no, that's a video.
Do you like to be able to
it's a video user's guide. That's even worse. All right, 1 second. Give me just 2 seconds, I'll have it for you. Oh, there it is. Ooh, I just missed it. I have the link to it right here. We're gonna find out right now. And what's nice is with a PDF, like I said, you can search it, download user's manual, and it's just going to keep asking me, yes, click here to download, go. Oh, they make it so easy. All right, oh great, I got the advanced user guide. That's not what I was hoping for, but we'll take it. Let's search for the word micro adjustment. It's 664 pages. Let's see if it's in there. It is not showing, but I don't like the way the search is working, so I'm going to download it. Because it is called AF micro adjustment. Wasn't that what it was called on Canon? AF micro adjustment? Let me go, and now that I've downloaded it, here it is. It's on my desktop. Search AF micro. Adjustment. Yeah, it wasn't working when I looked on the, hold on. No, hold on. It has 3 matches and they're all on the same page. No, that can't be right. Is micro adjustment one word? You know, I don't see it on my Canon EOS. I have to do a little digging. I would be surprised if they took it out. I really would be. But I'm in there. Now, this is not their regular user's manual. I'm in their advanced user's manual, which I don't even know what that means. But if I keep following the links, we'll be here all day long. I'd be surprised if it's missing, but it could be. It shouldn't be. There's no reason for it not to be there. We beat this topic to death. Next question. Sorry.
Okay, next question. Canvas Discount does not deliver to Canada. Any recommendations for international shipping?
Ah, crud. They really don't deliver to Canada. What's wrong with them? Canada is one of the most awesome places on earth. They should definitely ship to Canada. I don't know who would do it up there. I mean, I know there's like in Toronto, there's people that make canvases, but I don't know if they're going to make it at that price. I mean, seriously, I've never seen anyone on earth that sells it at that price. So you got to know somebody in the U.S. that you can ship it to them and then they can ship it to you. That's what it is. Find somebody in Chicago. You must know somebody in like Buffalo, Chicago, Detroit's on the edge there. You can go through Windsor. Ship it to somebody in the U.S. You'll save so much money. It is ridiculous. And then have them ship it to you. I know it's clunky, but when you see what the prices of regular canvas are, you're going to go.
Do what you got to do to get the discount, right?
Yeah, you'll think up twice about it.
Okay, next question. Any tips for shooting low on the ground for focus and framing when you don't have the tip out screen and not great knees?
Yes, use the wireless app. Use the app and tap on the screen for the app to focus. So yeah, use the app as your focus thing. Don't use that. If your screen doesn't flip out, that's what I used to do. It's terrible because there's a picture of me, like I have it down on the ground and I'm looking at my app, and when I want to move it, I take my foot and it's the worst. I think I probably have it right here. I have this terrible picture of me. Yep, here it is. Take a look. I'm looking at the app and I go, it's a little off. I reach down to my platypod with my foot. I know it's terrible. It's lame. That is the laziest photographer right there in the world. But it works. So use the app. All right, next question.
Okay, next question. Rosario asks, is the softbox listed on your gear guide the one that comes with the kit?
Yeah, it's the same one. It's the Westcott. It's the Westcott Rapid Box Octa, and the Octa is the kit on B&H for 150 bucks. Make sure you get the one that has the light stand because you can spend almost 150 bucks with no light stand. So get the one with the light stand. It's 150. 150.
Okay, next question from Bruce. I love the way the long exposure makes the people disappear. Usually, how long does it need to be in general?
So there is no in general because it's based on the light where you're shooting and how much an ND you have. So, for example, if you put on a 3-stop, it may only give you 6 or 10 seconds or 12 seconds. That's probably not going to be enough unless the people are moving a lot. You know, it's like if they're all moving, that's great. But in the case of, you know, that Venice picture, I think my exposure was like 9 minutes. It was like 9 or 10 minutes. That was a 10 stop in the middle of the day at like F16. So I was trying to get a really, really, really long exposure so enough people would move. The bad thing is, it only takes one person to ruin the shot. If somebody just stops and sits there for 3 minutes or 4 minutes, they're going to be in your shot. They got to keep moving, keep hustling everybody. Now, I had a situation, I was shooting in the Hall of Mirrors in Versailles in France, and there was a guy at the end of the hallway. All these people are moving and I'm getting all the shots. But there's a guy at the end that was on his cell phone and he would not move. So I asked my buddy, go tell that guy to move. We went down there and he said, can you move over just a foot? My buddy's trying to take a shot. The guy's like, yeah. And he just moved. That was it. I just needed to move for a minute. Just get over there. And I got the shot. So everybody's got to move. So I don't know what the number is. It just depends on how fast they're moving, what kind of, you know, but longer's better. I will tell you that. Longer is better.
Okay, next question. Actually, a couple people were asking about this. What ball head do you use or recommend with the Platypod?
So I got a great ball head for you because it's inexpensive and I absolutely love it. In fact, I love it so much that I've been recommending it, and B&H put a bundle together based on my recommendation. It's the Oben BE117. So I'm gonna pull it up for you real quick here. So it's the let's go to B&H first, and then we'll hit the Oben BE. There it is, the 117. This is a great little ball head, and it's cheap, 84 bucks. I love this. I love it. It'll support 17 pounds, which is more than you're ever going to have on there. But it's like just the right size for it. That's how I came across it. I had all these different ball heads, and I found the Oben, which I had here that I'd used for something else, and I tried it on there, and it was like, this is perfect. And the guy, Larry, who's the owner, I'm like, Larry, you got to look at this Oben. It's like made for this thing. So they actually do have a combination that if you get the Platypod, you know, a Platypod and so plus Oben. Let's see if I can find it for you. Yeah, there it is. So this is the, well, this is the Platypod Max. This is the big one. That's the Pro model. That's this large, and it's heavy, and it's for like shooting with a 400 millimeter. So I want the one with the Ultra. I don't know if they have an Ultra one, but it should be a lot cheaper than that, unless it's here. There it is. Now, I have this Benro. I'm not crazy about this Benro. I have this one. It's a little too lightweight. And look, more on the way, so they're out of it anyway. Get the Oben. You'll like the Oben better. I'm not crazy about that Benro. That Benro is a little too lightweight.
So I know Platypod just released the Platyball, or are in the process. Have you had any experience with that one yet?
Right. Oh yeah. So the Platyball is the Platypod people's new ball head. Now it's not been released yet. It went in Kickstarter, then it went to Indiegogo. They raised like almost $600,000 in Kickstarter, so it was like a darling. And now you can go to platyball.com to get on the list to get your first one, which will be at the end of the year. So it's Platyball, PLATYBALL.com. You can go there and check that one out. Now that's like a pro ball head. That ball head's like the ball head of the gods, and the price is still pretty good. If you get it it's still pretty good. But it's got all kinds of features and stuff. So it's the real deal. It's the one I'm using when it comes out. That'll be my new ball head.
Okay, next question. Have you ever used Topaz Denoise AI? I'm a wildlife photographer and use it in most of my bird images and wondered if it helps in landscapes.
Yeah, it is just a denoise thing, and I would say now I'm not a denoise fan. I don't mean denoise as the plugin. I'm not a noise reduction fan at all, because most of what noise reduction does is blur your image to hide the noise. But I will say this, of the ones I've seen, Topaz's, they got a hit on their hands with that one, because I think it's the best one out there. Of all of them that are out there that do noise, I think that they're AI right now. They've got one of my images. So Tobaz asked me for one and said, Scott, send us a really crazy, noisy image. I sent them an awful image. And when I see them do it, I'm like, it's got some crazy AI, crazy stuff. So yeah, I think it's great. I think it'll work on whatever. I think the one I sent them was a landscape. So yeah, so if you're having good success with your bird images, you'll have success with the other ones. But I think it's probably the best thing out there. I just don't use a lot of noise reduction. I'm anti-noise reduction. I love the noise. Embrace the noise. Remember, there are 3 filters inside of Lightroom and Photoshop that are designed to do what? Add noise. They're literally called add noise and noise. Because grain, people are used to seeing grain. It makes it look real.
Yeah.
So grain's good. And so are berries, grain and berry. Very healthy.
Okay, next question. Jennifer asks, there are several sizes for diffusers, reflectors. What do you find is best and most frequently used size?
30-inch. Because you know what? If it gets too big, it gets too crazy. Like a 30-inch I think is a really good size.
All right. Let's see. What do we have here? I think this kind of goes back to a previous question, but how long do you adjust the speed for erasing people on a long exposure, and any ND filter in particular?
Yeah, I would get the 10. I tell you what, the 10 stop is really good. If getting rid of people is your goal, get the 10 stop. Now I'm going to show you on B&H, since we haven't had B&H open here, HAIDA, and I want the 10 stop. So let me find it for you. So $80. That's the 3 stop. No, it's 10 stop. 10 stop, HAIDA. Now I use their slim one. They got one called a Slim Pro. The 72 millimeter size is $56. That's really cheap, and they're good. The HAIDA stuff is really, really good. 10 stop. Now it's based, see the size 72? It's based on the roundness and size of your lens. So you might need a 67, you might need a 72 or a 70. It's based on, but that's a very popular size, 72. $56. But see how it says 3.0? Don't go by that. Go by this. It's 10 stops. So if you got the money, get a 3 stop and a 10 stop and you're covered. You won't see anybody in your photos with a 13 stop. Of course, you'll be upward for 14 minutes, but. All right. Next.
Okay, this looks like it may be the last question, unless other ones come in. What size platypod do you use, or do you use
I use
both?
the Ultra. I use the small one. Do you have one over there?
We may.
Hold on, maybe we can scrounge one up here. Is there one in there? We got empty boxes. We don't have the actual, oh, wait, I know where one is. Don't move, don't breathe, don't make a sound. In my camera room, I've got one right there. Go one up on Ron. Sit down, Ron. So look at Ron. There's
Ron.
Ron.
Let me see if there's any other questions that are coming in. All right. So as of right now, it doesn't look like there's many other questions coming in. This is the Platypod Max. Scott is getting the Ultra, and I will hand this to him so you can see a size comparison.
Okay, so here's the thing. I didn't have one. Oh wait, what's in my jacket pocket here? What? This is the one that I use. Thank you, Ron. This is the one that I use, which is the Platypod. Look how small and thin it is. It weighs nothing because it's like commercial aircraft aluminum. It's so cheap, and it literally fits, oh, right in my pocket. In fact, my pocket is too big for it. I had to reach down in my pocket. What? So this is the one I use. Now, I put a 70-200 on here. I put a 16-35. I put that big Tamron, that big honking thing. I put everything up to a 70-200 on here. and I've never had it fall over. Never had it fall over. Now, the Platypod Max is this big boy. That's big. That's big, baby. But from most folks, unless you're going to be using a really, really big, like if you're using a 300 millimeter, like you're shooting sports and you're putting a 300 or a 400, it's big. It's big, and I don't want to say it's heavy. It's a lot. It's 3 times the weight of the other one. It's more expensive, but it is nice. It does the job, and it comes with spikes, as does this one. This little baby, so small, it's not intimidating. Nobody thinks anything of it. Love it.
That Max is beefy.
The other one's beefy. It's beefy.
Yeah.
All right. Are we all set?
Actually, a couple other quick questions.
Sure.
In regards to the small Wacom tablet, is that the Pro model?
Yeah, I would get the Intuos Pro. Yeah, get the Intuos Pro small.
And then, let's see. So Ron asks, is there a fall conversion recipe? And I'm not sure if he's referring to the lab color section that you just covered at the end there, or...
Yeah, that's the conversion I do. It's lab color, switch to the B channel, it's done. It's not going to ask you any more questions. Like, it's done. When you get to that, it's like, okay, it's fall.
All right, and then looks like maybe one more here.
Sure.
Well, Linda asks, what about a variable ND filter?
Don't get into variable ND. You will be very disappointed. I have the best one they make, and I hate it. The vignetting, the darkening of the edges when you put it on there is staggering. It's staggering. Like I don't use mine. I used it for like a couple of weeks, and I said, I don't think I've ever hated a filter more. Because it sounds like a great idea until you try and use it, and the vignetting is just awful. And I get no vignetting from the other stuff. And they're expensive. Like a good variable ND is expensive. You're cheaper to get 2 or 3 of the hiatus, but you only need 2. Get a 3-stop, a 10-stop, and you're done. You're talking like $100 total. And a variable ND. Let's look at a variable ND.
Okay, and then somebody's asking if you can give the
Well,
discount.
Tiffin's got one for $99.
Oh,
it's not
I'm sorry.
bad. But I haven't tried the Tiffin. Yeah, see, there's like a Peter McKinnon, $249. That's a top seller. It's $249. That's a lot of money. $249. That's like a lens. And then here's another Peter McKinnon. Good for him though. He's $300. Woo! Yeah, I'm not a fan of the that's just me. I'm sure there's people that love them and use them. I'm not a fan.
One last question. Somebody's asking if you can put up the discount code for the Platypod again.
Oh yeah. Let me go. I got it. Let me go find it. Don't move. There it is. There's the code. Jason beat me to it.
All right, and I think that's going to wrap this one up.
All right. Well, thank you, Ron. Thanks very much. And thanks to all of you. Thank you for asking your questions and spending the day with us. We appreciate it very much. You wish you great health. Stay healthy. Stay safe. Take lots of great pictures. And we'll see you guys next time. Take care, everybody.